Welcome back to 7th Grade Mustache. On today's episode, we'll speak of the river of time. The historians of science are generally oblivious of Indian physics, East Indian physics, astronomy, or cosmology. The Vedic system of knowledge is based on a threefold approach to the universe where connections exist in triples in categories of one group across several groups, such as the sky, atmosphere, the earth, object, medium, subject, future, present, past, and so forth. Beyond the triples lies the transcendental fourth. Three kinds of motion are alluded to in the Vedic books. These are the translational motion, sound, and light, which are taken to be equivalent to earth, sky, and air. The fourth motion is assigned to consciousness, and this is considered to be infinite in speed. So, the entire reason that we are discussing this today is because the concept of time has been on my mind constantly. Because I'm a time traveler, I build time machines, I go back and forth in time without using a time machine. But I joke about building time machines because as a filmmaker, I make reels for other actors. And this allows people to jump into the future and have an advantage that they didn't have that weekend before we shot this stuff. But really, we time travel all the time, just like that movie 12 Monkeys or La Jette, where you can time travel using your mind as opposed to using a device or a machine. And so I think about time and how it applies to life and how it affects our lives. There's always been moments in my life where I've jumped into the past and experienced it fully. And then there's been times where I can see things in the future or be in future moments and then relive that future moment right after foreseeing that.
Deja vu, when you dream about it like a year ago, months ago, you're not worried about it or anything, but you're like, and then when it happens, like when you have a dream, you know this is deja vu. This is too realistic. This is too tangible. You dig what I'm saying? And then when it happens, you're like, I remember this. I dreamed about this months back. I dreamed about this a year ago. I knew this was going to happen.
But what you got to do is don't say anything to anybody. Just be quiet and observe it.
Absorb it, yes.
The reason why I'm bringing up the East Indian approach to time and creation is because we get pounded every day. All these Western concepts, and even from a religious perspective, it's all about the Bible and Hebrews and they did this and like that's cool, man. But there are other worlds because Christians get caught up in the whole fallen angels versus God and his team. People get caught up in this thing, and there is a lot of deception in that. So I want to sidestep all that horse shit completely and talk about something that people here in this part of the world do not discuss, which goes back beyond the population of this planet forming and proliferating across the world. So I want to go into this and give you another perspective that you do not consider because Western science as well as religions don't discuss this.
Look, one of the deepest things Farrakhan ever said, he said it in two speeches. He said the Bible is the story of the white man. And people get mixed up. They're like, oh, like, no, he's not saying there's not black people in the Bible. That's not what he's saying. He's saying that if you follow those people, that this is the story of how the white man came into power and understanding and whatever. And people don't get it. And they take it the wrong way. But the fact is this, there's an African lady, she does a bunch of speeches back in 93 and 2005 and 6, where she talks about in Nigeria, they have a 300,000-year-old culture that was, and I think her book is called like We Predate Adam or something like that. I can't.
But dig this though, the fact that the real Garden of Eden is now considered to be in the area where Kenya, Tanzania, near the Horn is right there, because there's volcanic activity that has happened in that area that is very old, that relates to a time that they speak about in the Bible. But this Eden, these rivers coming together, they're like, oh, it's the Euphrates and the Tigris. No, that is in Africa. And they always talk about all, like, you know, the oldest, you know, hominids are found in Africa. Yeah, no shit. But
okay, hey, on a personal note, me and your pops had a conversation at your kitchen table about that, and he was explaining that to me. He's like, look, you know, what does it say here? And he says, but it flows down here. And he, fast forward 25 years, they find the research. I'm like, damn, that motherfucker was right. You know, and so as you get older, here's the deal. Like you hear guys like Billy Carson talk about different stuff. These different religions are meant to be used together. These different things are not meant to be separate. When you keep these religions separate, that's a control mechanism. But when you realize that the Hindus had this, and you realize that the cats over here had that, and the Asians had, you know, excuse me, I can't think of the Asians, Confucius had this, excuse me, I'm sorry, and the Native Americans had this and that. You realize that people were separated on purpose. On a personal note, I remember I had told you the story. I was at a bar with a lady, my wife. It was her mom, and they're Native Americans, and I didn't realize she was Native. I thought she was, you know, Mexican, but she was Native to this area, and she had talked about how bad they beat her so she wouldn't speak her language. And you also hear about some of these old heads talk about how if you were over 13, you could be put to death for using your native language. And it didn't make sense until I heard a Mexican break it down. He said, you know, before we had Spanish, we had a Hamitic or Shemitic language. They had a Semitic language. So if we didn't beat those languages out of them, we would probably know that we're much more connected than you realize, or that people over here were connected to people over there. And so when you study that kind of stuff and you realize these things are meant to be intertwined and not separated, then that you understand the control mechanism of like the Catholic Church and all this other shit, where like, oh no, they don't want to talk about it, but me and you've talked about it on the podcast, how that bishop burned all those Native American books, because we're told the Native Americans don't have books. No, they had books. Or you realize that when they went into India, they were doing levitation and shit like that in India, but all of a sudden they beat them over the head with Christianity instead of combining the two religions. And like, hey, you know, this guy, you know, we can benefit from this. No, so it's crazy when you would find out how these cultures are much older than you realize. And when people listen to our podcast, we try to give y'all shit that you can look up to prove. We had talked about this too. The old girl where she had went to do one of these DNA tests, and they wigged out. They were like, "Hey, who's your father?" Because her DNA, her X chromosome was so long. Who's your father? She said, "Oh, my father just died." So they exhume his body, do a DNA test on him, and they realize he's from the Igbo tribe, and his Y chromosome is like one of the oldest Y chromosomes, and it belongs to some people in West Africa, what's called the Igbo tribe, and it's 250,000 years old. Like, so you're like, wait a minute, we were told that we've only been around for this or that, or culture's this. No. And this is some proven shit. Y'all can look it up. This is not me just making this shit up, but we've talked about it on past podcasts. So I think that our civilization was much more intertwined, and we were much more successful as a people. And I'm not talking about race. I'm talking about the human race was much more successful when we were, you know, intertwined and understand, like, hey, man, they've already proved it that the people in India had been over here to America a couple times, and the people in India knew about these guys over here on the west coast of America, and how could they possibly know? That just tells you that we were always in contact in the past, that we were one people, not these many scattered people that they try to convince you that we are now.
So check this out. So I spoke about how the Vedic concept speaks on there's a threefold approach to the universe where connection exists in triplets. And there's Vedic texts that are thousands and thousands of years old. And the three kinds of motion that they speak about in these Vedic books are motion, sound, and light. And those are the equivalent to earth, air, and sky. And the fourth motion is consciousness. And this is considered to be infinite in speed. So beyond the speed of light, faster than the speed of light, speed of thought. speed of being. That one of the founders of the quantum theory was directly inspired by the Vedic system of knowledge, Schrodinger. And in 1961, he claims he repeated the Vedic slogan, all in one in all. And that was an idea that led him to the creation of the quantum mechanics concept in physics. But before Schrodinger, the idealist philosophical tradition in Europe had studied the Vedic ideas and concepts, and many parts of the Vedic literature are still not properly understood, although considerable progress has recently taken place in the study of Vedic science. The books in this Indian tradition speak about the relativity of time and space in a variety of ways. There are older books called the Puranas, Puranas, and they speak of countless universes and time flowing at different rates for different observers. The Puranas view the universe to have a diameter of about 10 light years across. But beyond the universe lies the limitless Pradhana, which is another sector, and that has within it countless other universes. So, when the Bible talks about the creation of the universe and all that, I often wondered, is that this universe? Just this universe? Or is that all universes? So I think about these things.
Yeah, what you're asking, was God only creating this universe at that point, or was he creating...
Or is the Bible just talking about what was created at that time here?
Yeah. But that goes back to what you're talking about. Present, past, and future, all at the same time. Oh, man, that's so deep.
Check it out. The Vedic system speaks of the interconnectedness between the observer and the observed. Quantum entanglement. Right. And this is thousands of years old, but until some white man in a physics lab studies this and says it's the truth, then it's just some old crazy Indian shit. No, dog. Like, this is some deep stuff that has been taught and known for thousands of years.
Okay. This sounds so bad, so I got to get this off my chest. One of the things that I've learned about white culture is white culture will lose, but they write down like they won. Like the Civil War. We know who won the Civil War because we can give an example. The North won the Civil War, but the South never stopped behaving like it. And I think that happens with a lot of cultures is that there's a thing that happens where that the prevailing culture doesn't write stuff down because we're kind of arrogant. We won, but the white man writes down like, "Hey, you lost," and we came in and did this, and so now we're being taught something that's actually not true. And I think that's a big misnomer that many of these cultures were so much older than they realized, were so much greater than they realized, and had and they had traditions passed down for thousands and thousands, if not dare I say millions of years. And but no, but we put it down and we behave like we're giving you rules. How can you give me rules? And then when enough of these old people die off who know the truth and it doesn't get conveyed, which is what we're going through right now in America, then they can permeate any rule they want. They can stick out anything, and that's what's happening, I think, because you can't tell me that the Indian culture ain't great and ain't been around for thousands of years.
But see, hold on. All that's cool and that's dope. But then what I'll point to is like, but y'all let motherfuckers dookie in the street. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the one two problems I got. The caste system, which is some straight bullshit, and then dookie in the street. Like, y'all motherfuckers got these secrets to the universe, but you letting people dookie in the street. Come on, dog.
But that goes back to what I'm saying. Like, that didn't happen until white folks came over there. That didn't happen until they grabbed the hashish over here and they went.
No, I don't think white people got anything to do with that. I think they was dookie in the street like before they even knew what the British Empire looked like.
Look, I don't know. The reason I don't know for sure, but all I'm saying is, how many times have we seen where the white man introduces drugs?
Look, man, that's probably a tradition. Is like, I shat in the street, my grandfather shat in the street, his father shat in the street, his father's father shat in the street.
This is good enough for my great grandfather. It's good enough for me. That does exist. You know what I'm saying? That does exist. But like I said, I don't know enough about their culture to dispute that. I just know that whenever that white cat brings in some new drug and he gets y'all hooked, he takes your gold next, or he takes your gold or your land. Just look it up. You know what I'm saying? Like when the Spanish come down there to South America, they bring in smallpox and shit, but they leave with your gold in the land. So I'm just saying, there's a pattern of that shit.
Yeah, but you can't blame shit on the street on white people, though. I don't think they got nothing to do with that.
Here's an example. Thomas Sowell, who he writes some good books, but he's also a dickhead. Thomas Sowell, who is an economist, like I said, he's one of these white guys that love white people. But one of the things he pointed out,
he's a black person that loves white people.
Yes, one of the things he points out, he said one reason that white people had such a strong immunity to some of these diseases that they unleash on us is because they live with their animals. That these motherfuckers lived in barns and they lived in animal shit. So their immunity was much stronger to some of these diseases. So, like I said, some of these behaviors that you're saying that might have been there to begin with, I'm saying might have came from white folks fucking with you. Like, hey, them motherfuckers are known for fucking donkeys. Them motherfuckers is known for sleeping with animals, like
bestiality.
Yeah.
But see, yeah, you saying as white people though, I think it's a human thing, man. Listen, you got dudes in the Middle East that are sheep herders, fucking their sheep. You know what I'm saying? That ain't white people.
Technically,
no,
that's a complicated. That's a complicated conversation.
No, that's that shit from the Bible. You know what I'm saying? That's that fallen from grace bullshit, and now you out here all by yourself and like, well, that sure look like a vagina. No, dog.
Okay. Well, we learned that in high school. Like, that's where gonorrhea came from. And we all joked about it. Then you come to find out there was some truth to that shit, that gonorrhea came from fucking sheep. And you're like, what the fuck? And so, look.
Pussy was just fine before they had to go mess it up.
like you, what the fuck? But again, according to some people, those Arabs are where white folks came from. But that's a whole other conversation. We're not on that today. What we are on is that some of these cultures are much greater than we were led to believe, and we down them because, like you said, that caste system. Was that caste system already there, or was it introduced? Because a lot of these caste systems are based on imitating white people. There's these two African tribes that have the same. I remember my uncle had taught us about this when we were kids. He gave me that book on Africa, and there's these two tribes have the same origin, but because the white folks introduce some shit, they get into it, and they're fighting over. I'm darker than you. I'm lighter than you, and y'all the same complexion because y'all got the same origin, but no, I'm better, and so some of that shit is like you want to be closer to white folks. Louisiana, the quadroons and all these runes and.
Okay. All right, Captain Sidebar. We got to keep going. Listen.
Bring it.
So, in the Indian tradition, reality is seen as a kind of universal state function, one that transcends the separate categories of space, time, matter, and observation. This state is called Brahman. It includes all categories, including knowledge. The conditioned mind can tune into Brahman and obtain knowledge, although it can only be expressed in terms of the associations already experienced by the mind. Within the Indian traditions, scientific knowledge describes the aspects of our outer reality as the topography of the mindscape. Furthermore, there are connections between the outer and the inner, and we can comprehend reality only because we are already equipped to do so. Two philosophical systems at the basis of Indian physics and metaphysics are Samkhya and Vaisesika.
They got some terms, don't they?
Yeah, man, exactly. So, Samkhya, which is an ancient system that goes back to 3000 BC, has 25 basic categories together with 3 qualities, which evolve in different ways to create the universe at the microcosmic and macrocosmic levels. It also seems the potential to be more basic than material entity. Vaisesika is a later system which is an atomic theory with the non-atomic basis of ether, space, and time, which rests upon 4 different classes of indestructible atoms, which combine in a variety of ways to make up all matter. The mind is considered to be atomic.
Oof.
Yeah. So, see, everybody's all like, the mind is in the brain. No, it's not.
No.
The mind is atoms. It's made up of ether.
Look, whenever I try to argue with people about that, about your brain not being your mind, I'm like, look at the Egyptians. So when the Egyptians did mummification, they put your heart in a vial, in a vase. They put your intestines here. They put everything. What did they do with the brain? They stuck a hook up your nose and cut the brain out and threw it away. You know why? Because your brain does not matter. It's your mind. It's your spirit. And when you try to explain it to people, no, that's because so you mean to tell me these people that built these pyramids didn't understand what a brain was? Your brain is just a conduit to your spirit. Your brain is not your mind. And your mind if your mind is atomic, that means you can move some shit and cause some explosions just with your mind. But again, that's just my example of proof that the brain is not the most important part of the body. A modern day example, Dr. Ben Carson, remember he does that hemispherectomy. That's when he cuts the brain in half and throws the damaged part away, and the brain grows back or essentially remaps itself. And these little kids turned out just fine. That means your brain is not you. You understand what I'm saying? Your brain is just a conduit. It's not you.
Hindus see the process of creation moving in cycles, and that each cycle has 4 great epochs of time. They are called the Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, and Kali Yuga. The precession, which is caused by the gradual rotation of the Earth's axis of these equinoxes, is the period of time that it takes the Earth's axis to pass through one completed cycle of the zodiac in the solar system. It takes the planet 72 years to pass through 1 degree of the zodiac. And it takes 25,920 years to complete 1 full circle of 360 degrees through the entire zodiac, through the solar system.
Remember that song, This is the Age of
Aquarius. Exactly.
Yeah. They're literally talking about that shit.
Right.
That Jesus and blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So remember, 1 rotation through the zodiac is 25,920 years. That's to complete that 360 degree circuit. So 1/2 of that journey takes 12,960 years, and it covers 4 of the yugas that I just described. So in the entire 25,920 years, it will pass through Satya, Treta, Dwapar, and Kali Yuga twice. Understand that. Satya Yuga lasts for 5,184 years. And Treta Yuga lasts for 3,888 years. Dwapara Yuga lasts 2,592 years. Kali Yuga is the shortest and lasts 1,296 years. Again, these 4 yugas come together to make up a total of 12,960 years, which is half of the cycle of the 360. So that's a 180 degree turn through our solar system.
Hey, but see, Roscoe, that's what I meant when I say this terminology is very, very specific.
Very specific, and you have to pay attention because this is sacred science.
Yes.
So, hold on. In the year 2082, about 49 years from now, we will complete Dwapara Yuga and move on to Treta Yuga. And the world will go through another upheaval. Not necessarily in terms of war, but probably in terms of population explosion and natural calamities, before moving on to this new era of well-being and upward movement of human consciousness. Go ahead.
No, it's real frustrating whenever these people talk about, like, they look at these like the Mayan calendar, or they look at one of these, like in Ethiopia they go by a different calendar, and they're like, oh, the world's supposed to come to an end, and they mock it so much. But we know about the Edgar Casey pole shift stuff, and we know that there were legitimate things that, like, the world stops, and everything, and you have floods, and the water levels are different, and we know all these different things, So I don't know why is it so hard to believe or understand? I don't want to use like the word, but why is it so hard to understand that they were counting something differently? They were using something different to count than what we're using now, and that when one thing comes to an end, that doesn't mean that we're going to see the effects, because we're not looking at the world through the same eyes they were looking at it when they came up with these, when they started understanding this or studying this or observing. And for them to figure this out, they would have to observe thousands of years. That culture would have to be thousands of years old, because also
minimum of thousands of years.
We hear Billy Carson say that, hey, that they changed our DNA, that we used to live to be 800 years old.
Right, exactly. But check this out. Indian yogic astronomy divides the orbit of Earth around the sun into 27 segments called nakshastras. Each nakshastra is further divided into 4 equal sectors called padas, or steps.
Dope.
Multiply 4 by 27 and it equals 108. These 108 units mark the 108 steps that the Earth takes through space. Each nakshastra corresponds to 1/2 of the lunar orbit around the Earth. The cycles within the human body respond and correspond to that. In a woman's body, there are the cycles of 27.55 days, 28 days, if she is perfectly healthy. In a man's body, the cycles are less obvious and pronounced, and they happen in a different way and are of a larger span of time.
But they do exist.
Correct. The solar system, with the sun and the planets around it, is moving in the galaxy. It takes, as I said, it takes 25,920 years for our solar system to complete one cycle around a larger star. From the effects upon the planet, we believe this big star or big system that our system is going around is not located in the center of the orbit, but somewhere to the side piece solar system. Whenever our solar system comes closer to this big system, all the creatures living in our solar system rise to greater possibilities. Whenever our solar system moves away from it, the creatures living in our system come to the lowest level of possibility. We say this is Kali Yuga. When our solar system is closer to the supersun, Satya Yuga will begin. The human mind will be at its highest capability. People's ability to know life, people's ability to communicate, people's ability to live joyfully will be at its highest. All it takes to live well on this planet is a bunch of sensible people. In Satya Yuga, human ability to communicate will be at its best because the ether will be very close. Right now, the etheric sphere on the planet is raised to a certain point that there was a time when it was much higher. Now it has become a little closer. When the ether is very close, and I want to say something to you, or a person wants to say something to you, they don't have to say it, they just transport it thought to you. The communication is psychokinetic. So even when the eyes are closed, you will know what a person wants to say. When the ether rises a little bit, but still at a certain distance, if a person closes their eyes, you will not know. But if a person opens their eyes and look at you, you will know what they want to convey. The ether getting stronger and rising will contribute to better communication amongst humans and all creatures. So at the same time, no matter which time, which yuga, which planetary position we are in right now, still individual human beings can rise above this. Still, individual human beings can live in the golden time within themselves.
But that's why it's necessary for you to know about these different things. No, that's what I meant. No other cultures, no other religions, because some of these religions have solutions to things.
They have gems, bro. They have real gold. They have real information knowledge that can benefit you. You know, and it's like, wow, close your mind that them people just, you know, they nasty folks duking in the street and they, you know, they worship cows. Whoa, settle down. Like, all that's overblown. The dookie in the street is not, but worshiping the cows is not. They don't worship the cow. It's not how it works.
They feel that it's an incarnation of their past family.
Correct.
And so, but that's the whole issue is that we look down on every other culture, and some of that's that American bullshit that we look down on everybody. And nobody's as good as us. The truth is,
even in the worst times, the possibility to be well above the darkness is always there for an individual human being. Yeah.
And what you're saying is it's really important to have your own individuality, which is something that sometimes gets lost in these different situations. I get it. You don't have to run out and read every book over there, but you definitely need to understand that these people have something to offer you. And, you know, learning some shit might open up your mind, might help you cope through some mental illness or some kind of distress you're going through. Like, okay, but it's really deep when these people have so much knowledge of time and they use time differently. And that can actually help us with your own understanding. What if you time travel within yourself and you go back to when you were younger and you have a better understanding and recall the situation? Or what if you can go back there and alter something to actually help yourself now? That kind of thing. Like, you know what? I need this. Or what if you go forward and you have an understanding that you can bring something back to now that's relevant? That when your concept of time has changed, it's not just this Swiss concept where all you're doing is monitoring minutes, seconds, hours. No. What if time is something that you can move it? It's malleable. It's tangible. And when you understand that better, like you look at people like Tesla, who like had this concept that everything is in threes and sixes and nines, and you combine that with what they know, and you would have a much better understanding of the physical universe instead of being a victim to it. Is that the right word? Instead of being just a leaf in the wind, you know, you have the ability to change things and affect things that you couldn't imagine. It's crazy that in this world of canceling, when the people find out shit, they'll cancel it real quick. Like, you know, Tesla was big on like, hey, if you're a criminal, you should be locked up, castrated. You should be able to produce kids, like shit like that. But that's because he's like, look, he wants a pure world with good people. Like I said, don't throw away what they're talking about over there.
Okay. So thousands of years ago, they said that as the solar system moves closer to the super sun, human intelligence will blossom. As the solar system moves closer, the realization that the whole body and the whole universe are electric structures will come naturally. Right now, as we're moving towards Treta Yuga, which is the second best time that can happen in the cycle of the yugas. Let's talk about the Mahabharata for a second, the story of every human being. The story begins because you have false ideas about yourself. The Mahabharata represents the grand misconception of human beings about life, their sufferings, their rise and fall. It goes on, and simply because human beings are struggling to come into tune with life. Whatever someone who is in tune with it tries to say, everyone else will misunderstand. Light cannot be put into words, but if you open your eyes, you can see light. Similarly, if this life that you are opens up, it can feel life. It can become life. So,
hey Roscoe,
hold it. Real, recognize real. That's what that means. Real, recognize real. And that term is so powerful because the truth is omnipresent. And it's one of those things when you say that actually it okay. There was this song by Lauryn Hill, "Everything Is Everything." Now, she didn't come up with that term. That term has been around, like old cool black dudes from the 70s were saying that shit to each other. Hey man, how you doing, brother? Everything is everything. I'm like, what? And like I would hear it, like, you know what I'm saying, like as a teenager in the 90s I would hear this shit, you know what I'm saying, everything is everything. And I'm like, all right, right on. But one day it hit me and I'm like, okay, I get it. And it crystallized in my mind because I began to practice Taoist alchemy and meditation.
When it made sense, it made sense is what you're saying. When you had the ability to understand what it meant, it's like, oh, your mind just had like an explosion in your mind, like, I get this now.
Yes. Exactly.
Yes.
So you know, life cannot be told. Telling is only to inspire. So it's the purpose is to de-mesmerize you from your own self-mesmerism.
Before you had that moment, you weren't wrong. But when you had that moment of understanding, you were just more right now than you were then. You weren't dumb. You were right in your ability to understand the words that were presented to you. But then all of a sudden something happened where it became realer to you, and you had a better understanding of what was attached to it. I know this, like back in the day, like a lot of the words and terms were, I can dig it, don't sanctify it. And use all these terms, I understand that shit now. Like, oh, that's what I dig it. Yes. I mean, that means I overstand. You know what I'm saying? I can dig it. You know, and these people were so brilliant with their wordplay, and so I don't think we give it enough credit. Hey, this is one of these what if things. I mean, you talk about off the air. So what you're telling me is that we're coming closer to the sun and we're becoming more electric. So how do you know the pandemic wasn't on purpose, but to hide that shit from you? Like if everybody's inside, that next Jesus Christ we won't know about. That next Creature we won't find because that nigga's inside not getting enough vitamin D to take on. You know, that's the shit we and you talk about off the air. Like
because the people that want to remain in control, they're aware of all these things that we're talking about. But they don't want you to know about it because they want to extend that sunset that they're watching.
It's two things you need to understand about those people that are in control. They know it ain't them. They know they ain't the next Jesus Christ. You understand that? So they have to do artificial things to keep us in the dark. And, you know, this is what we mean when I'm like, okay, so these people back then understood that we were electric. You hear Dr. Sebi talk about, oh, it's all electric. And when the first time you hear Dr. Sebi, I did not get this shit. You know, all I knew was that
I understood what he was saying. It came off as extreme. And the reason why it came off as extreme is because you hear that shit as a young person. And as a young person, you can eat anything. You're indestructible. But he was already an old man. He had already lived a full life. And he was already having aches and pains in his body. Well, and wait. He had already lived a full life of having aches and pains and trying to figure out what is going on with him. So in the process of healing himself, he healed other people. And he said, listen, let's cut the bullshit. If you want to be a better, most optimum person, optimum version of yourself, this is what you got to do. Cut the shit out. As a young person who's indestructible, was like, man, I'm cool. I can keep eating this shit and doing all this shit. I'll be all right. And you can until about 37. And then your body's like, hold on, nigga, what you doing?
Look. The shit gets deep because, like I said, when I remember like certain things you find out. Like me and you talked about this on an episode about 10 episodes ago, where they were saying like, okay, so your body replenishes every 71 days. Like, no, it doesn't. Yes, it does. So when you find that out, then you realize it's really important to eat the right foods. And when you were a kid in your parents' home, our parents made us eat correctly. You know, you had vegetables, you had meat, blah, 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 whatever. But then you get out on your own and you just eat nothing but fast food and you don't realize that, wow, I fucked myself by doing this. Or then you realize...
I don't think so. I did not. So I realized pretty early to stop eating bullshit. And so,
Look, you was eating mangoes and shit by you just walked down the street eating the mango.
but here's the thing though.
You
Here's the thing though. Like as a kid, it's fine to eat whatever, because enjoy it. Eat all that crap and enjoy it, because that's the time where you can eat for mouth pleasure. You know what I'm saying? That your body is built for that shit, because you're growing so fast that the fuel that you consume, the quality doesn't matter. You just
I
need
think
that fuel.
I think some things are a delicacy. Some things are meant to be eaten once or twice a year. And I think that's what we got away from. I think when you realize that certain things, oh, I can have this 3 times a year. That's it.
But function comes into this. Before you leave your
yes,
parents' home, you're not relying on your body to make money, to have strength, to work, to make it through the day. No, because just about every part of your life is scheduled for you. Waking up in the morning, going to school, after school activities, eating dinner, going to bed.
teaches you discipline.
Everything is
It's order.
scheduled for you.
Yep.
When you leave your parents' home, you are responsible for maintaining your vessel and transporting that diamond to its distant destination, which is death. So, you have to be more careful about what you eat. When you and your mama and dad's crib, eat all the bullshit. It's fun. It's fun. It's just, listen, man, it's nutritional crack. Okay? Just eat it. Just eat it. And then, right before you start to leave your parents' house, you start waking up like, yo, I can't be eating all this crazy shit, because I got to get up fucking 7 in the morning, whether it's for college, whether it's for work, whether it's for the
Yep.
military. You got to get your ass up and you got to get out there and make it fucking happen.
Look, like I said, all we're saying is that when you realize that that electric term, that's a real deal, and then you start looking at these past cultures and you see like, oh, they knew about this, because that's why they mix this food with that food.
So then,
Or
if you don't take care of those electrical circuits, you
yes,
get blocked circuits. And then what happens with electricity when like a circuit is blocked? It goes somewhere else trying to get out, and then ends up getting stuck, and you get a malfunction, or circuits burn out, and people have strokes, or people have head attacks, or people have disease, or people have heart attacks. These are all electrical malfunctions.
oh my God, like please listen to my brother. He's not preaching. He's explaining to you your physical interaction with this world, and we don't get that. And that's why I said, if we started learning all the stuff we're supposed to learn early on, and if we understand how the body truly works, then you know what to eat. If you understand how the body truly works and how plants really interact with you, and this, that, and that, then you would have a better understanding. I think Dr. Sebi was really strict, because he said no hybrids, and what he's telling you is like a lot of them hybrids are acidic, and then that causes disease. And we're learning these different things now, but I think that a lot of these things were in place when we were kids. I shouldn't say, when I say kids, I'm not referring to us as children. I'm referring to our society as we come along in this world. Like back in the day, they understood that shit. People weren't getting cancer because one, you weren't around all this damn electricity, all this radiation. Pardon me. There's some
And dirty
environmental
electricity.
Yes. We weren't around that shit, and our food wasn't contaminated with so much bullshit, preservatives, and all this other shit. And so when you start to realize like this shit is not natural, and they use these terms natural and whole food, they slap it on the wrapper, and you're like, oh, that's natural. Don't fall for it. Those words are just words. You have to read what's inside of it.
All right, so the whole point is to demesmerize yourself from your own self-mesmerism. Every human being has been hypnotized and into their own limitations, and they believe that is it. If you undo the hypnotism, you will feel fearful because existence is limitless. Therefore, if that person is spinning one way, you have to spin them the opposite way for some time for them to feel they're going somewhere. No matter what they are doing, everyone thinks they are doing it for the good. Whether it's my good, your good, someone else's good, or everyone else's good. Whatever kind of good. Everyone thinks they're doing it for the good. the story is not about a particular person. The Mahabharata comes under the classification of Itihasa. In India, there are three categories of the great text: Itihasa, Purana, and the Veda. Vedas are full of abstract ideas, scientific theories, and explanations for celestial happenings. Puranas are stories of beings who are not human. Itihasa is the story of the human being, not in terms of history, though there is a historic element to it. The facts are rooted in history, but this is the story of every human being. It is about the meaning of your life. So, we're going to talk quickly about Vedic and Puranic cosmology. We first look at the Vedic cosmology. The Vedas are the texts that represent the ancient knowledge tradition of India. While their compilations go back at least to 3000 BC, some of their contents may be even older. The Vedic tradition is part of the Indian cultural tradition that has been traced back archaeologically to about 8000 BC. The antiquity of the Vedic text is in part confirmed by the celebration of the Sarasvati River as the greatest river of that time. And modern hydrological studies have been established that this river dried up around 2000 BC. The king lists in the Puranas take us to several millennia before the period of the drying up of the Sarasvati River. There is also a rock art tradition in India that has been traced about 40,000 BC. So when we're talking about these ancient cultures and the knowledge that came from them, again, the point of this is to shake you out of this westernized brainwash that takes the power away from you, that has you thinking that this dude and this guy and these people begat and all this nonsense. When you get caught up in a soap opera like that, it takes your attention away from the importance of who you are, of what your abilities are, what your spiritual potential is, how you can transcend this existence. Oh no, but his head was bruised and he crawled on his stomach and all this bullshit. I'm like, that's cool, man. That's a cool ass story. But that only helps me to a limited degree. That has nothing to do with my own personal evolution. That's a story. Those are stories about shit that probably happened. And that's cool, man. That's real fucking cool. But I am interested in mine and my friends and my family, our spiritual evolution. How do we get the fuck out of here? Instead, people want to keep this whole prison planet thing going on. And how you ain't shit because you was begat by this person who was begat by that person. He was somebody great that fell down and this and the fall of man and there were two seeds planted in the garden, and one by God and one by the devil, and the woman crossed with this, and you got the fallen angels and the Nephilim. Fuck all that shit, man. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm really over that shit. I really am, because it always changes. Oh, we just found new shit. Really? Because I'm looking at this shit over here, and it's been unchanged for about, 8,000 years, 10,000 years. That's some cool ass shit. I'm not saying that the other stuff is, not important. Sure, because it tells you what the playing field is for people who have interfered in the development of humanity. Because that's really what that is. It's about an interference, and parents and like uncles fighting, and the kids gotta watch this bullshit and get caught up in it. I ain't talking to your uncle no more. You know what I'm saying? And don't trust that motherfucker because he lies all the time and he does crazy ass shit. And he'll tell you yes all the time, which is true. The devil will always tell you yes. you know. But sometimes I'm gonna tell you no. Why you tell me no? Because it's for your own good. Okay, cool, man. How big is this universe? Well, I'm gonna hide that in some shit and make it hard for you to see. Why? Fucking tell me. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's why I'm tripping on this shit, man, because you can go look up this stuff and like, this information you are looking for is right here. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're not hiding it from anybody.
Nope.
And like this whole petty shit about hiding information to control people. They just want to be in fucking control. You know, so that when you look at all this stuff that was like going on, and if we're going like on a time scale of like thousands of years, and you go back before the flood and all that shit, okay, was that during one of the yugas when fucked up shit was happening? Because remember, the yugas, the four of them, that's 12,000 years, so you got to go through those yugas twice. So when all this fucked up shit was happening and like God was fighting with the devil and there was a war in heaven, was that during a Kali Yuga of that time? You know what I'm saying? If that was with 25,000 years ago, a full rotation, however long it was, you know.
But like I said, there's explanations for things that. So, I hate when people use God as a catch-all, and when I say that, this sounds so stupid. So, I can't figure something out. Oh, that's just God. Like God's just magic. So you haven't studied something enough, and you don't want to give it a proper explanation or devote your time. I think God wants me to go to school today. Like, what? God, he's holding up stars and universes. He ain't got time to think about stupid shit. But I just think that when people don't study enough or have the right answers, that they just use God as a catch-all. And we already know God's everything. But sometimes people use it hey, man, what's 2 + 2? God said it's 19. Like, what? It's just one of these things. And when you realize that these other cultures have something to offer, this shit makes much more sense. Like you said, if this Kali Yuga was happening when the flood happened, it could have been predicted. People could have their lives saved, or, we're not just victims, So that's some deep shit. That's all.
Yeah. So, I mean, dude, listen, there's a lot of cool information out there, but you got to go and dig for it. You know what I mean? And when you go talk to some people about this, it's too much for their little brain or their mind to comprehend because they have mesmerized themselves into being limited, into these limitations. You hear about these yogis in India when the Brits got there, and these dudes could levitate.
Yes.
And the motherfucker could like chop his arm off and put it right back on and
grow back.
Seal the wound. No, and seal the wound. Like, wow, that is some ninja shit. But the thing is that these people are in a different state of mind. They've removed the limitations. There's a good book about this.
Electricity.
Yes, there's a good book about this, about an Indian man who brought yoga to America. His name is Yogananda Paramahansa. Yogananda Paramahansa. And he wrote a book called Autobiography of a Yogi. Read that book. That is a good ass book because it's told from an Indian perspective in this situation and the wonders and the things that he witnesses. Not that he did, but that he witnesses. There's a story in this book about a guy. He was a yogi, and he was a meditation teacher. And when he died, his body did not decay for 2 weeks.
Crazy.
His body did not decay for 2 weeks because the life force, not his spirit, but the life force that was still in his body had not decayed because it was such a high quality. It was like putting an apple on a countertop after you bought it from the grocery store and letting it sit there. Normally an apple would decay pretty fast, but this apple, which is his body, took 2 weeks to decay. They got a call from the coroner. It was like, hey, I don't know what's going on with your man, but he's not decaying.
Yeah, he's still here.
Mm-hmm.
Look, hey, I'm gonna give an example of this electricity thing, and so you guys can look this up. I want to say 1930s. Please forgive me if I'm wrong about the dates, the time, but We all know, like, if you have a salamander, you cut its tail off or you cut its leg off, it grows back. So these scientists were trying to figure out what's the deal with frogs. These are both amphibians, and so they cut a frog's leg off, it didn't grow back. And we know this, right? Well, then this one scientist realized, like, hey, this salamander has a higher electric charge. So they cut the leg off the frog, and what they do is they run an electric charge through it for like a day, and it grows right back. When you have enough electricity in you, that frog grew its leg back, and we know frogs don't grow legs back. And so they figured that shit out way back then. How come we're not like using that technology now? Because it would fix some shit. They make too much money on people being sick. But the bottom line is that there was technology and studies being done that, well, how do you grow limbs back? How do you do this? Same thing. We're also told, like, certain ancient areas or this, that, another. Look it up. I think they just found a site in Oregon that's 18,000 years old.
Okay, so, check this out, though. Now, dovetail that with this, where they talk about people have phantom limbs when they are severed.
Yes. Yep.
And a person's arm gets cut off, but they can still feel the fingers moving. So then, okay, if you were of a certain vibration and of a certain mindset, then you could regenerate another arm.
Yeah. Period. Yeah.
Because
but you're taught you can't.
The energetic echo is still there.
But if you're taught that you can't grow it back from an early age, if you're taught that in school, like, oh, you lose a finger, you're fucked. You don't have another one. Your teeth come out, it won't grow back. But then you see motherfuckers in ancient times that have 2 or 3 rows of teeth or whatever. So all I'm simply saying is that they're teaching you that you can't do stuff to control you, not to make your life easier or better. And then when you get older, you find out it's not true. Like you said, you lose a hand, you still feel it there. Well, what if you get a proper electric charge and you can grow it back? If we're spiritual, not physical, then we have the ability to control our physical form. That we're above our bodies. We're not, we're in our bodies. We're not our bodies themselves. Our body is a temple that houses us, but we control this temple. We can renovate a temple. We can add another wing to a temple. If that's the case, then with the proper training, with the proper understanding, you can do a lot more crazy shit. Mm. Well, we deem it crazy by our standards because
it's crazy shit. It's crazy shit.
Yeah, you know what I meant, nigga. But yeah, so like you said, these yogis were doing miracles before the white man came there,
right?
And that's undeniable. That's known.
So then we come to the part of the show where we say, listen, we put all this stuff out there, and now it's up to you to use it to the best of your ability. Now, of course, for some people, this could be, well, maybe I will ponder this stuff a little bit differently now. Maybe I will think about this in a different way. I would hope so. I would hope so that this discussion helps you to think about the universe that we live in a different way. But also the energy of your body and how we relate to time itself. Because I was talking with a friend the other day, and she told me about a loved one that passed away and how the loved one will visit the home and the lights will flicker, and how small children can see these people. They can see the echo of this person. They can see the spirit energy. And because that little kid those little children have not been mesmerized into thinking that reality is a certain way, that they're still pure, they can still see these loved ones that have passed on. So there's this phenomenon that I call standing next to the door. When an old person is about to die, moments before their death, they see all types of sights and wonders. And they can see the other side. And they can see the energy around people. And the energy around them begins to change. And young people, very small children, can see entities. Because that young person has not been brainwashed, and it's a new soul, it's a new birth, so they're still close to the door that they came out of. And that older person is close to the door they're going to go out into, back into the universe, back into the ether, back into the spirit realm. So being close to the door does have an effect on your perception of the afterlife and those who have already passed on. So, for those of us who are not close to either of those doors anymore, we have to make it our goal to raise ourselves to the highest vibration every day. How cleaning up your thoughts can lead to a more disciplined lifestyle. And like Dead Press says, discipline makes things easier. Organize your life. For the things you want, go for them. Go for them fully. Push through the mud and really fight for what you want. Too much ease leads to dis-ease. So you really have to push for it, man. You really have to want to be better. But just wanting it enough is not enough. Acting on it is where you get results. It's like doing a push-up. It don't feel good. They don't feel good. But get your ass down there and do a fucking push-up. Do a push-up. Lay your body on the ground and then push your body up off the ground and then come back down again and repeat. And do it over and over until your muscles swell with blood. Because that is keeping the electricity flowing. Keep the electricity flowing. See, we get used to these indestructible bodies when we're young. And what happens is that overlap of the mind and the body begins to drift as you get older. And if you're not doing the same things or close to the same things you were doing when you were younger, then you have this diluted idea or concept of self because you're basing all of your concepts of yourself on a person that you used to be. But if you're not that person anymore, then motherfucker, get to work. Get your ass out there and keep the blood flowing. Don't sit down, stand up, move, go for a walk. Go for a walk after you eat dinner. Put a podcast on your phone and put some headphones on and walk around the block after you eat dinner. Take your dogs for a walk. You know what I'm saying? Get your ass up and go for a walk. Sweat. But at the same time, if you're sweating, empty your mind. Like Bruce said, be formless. Be shameless, like water. The water can flow and it can crash. But I'm serious though. Keep moving. I just dropped it on you. We've been dropping it on you. We're going to keep dropping it on you. That's all I got. We out. Peace.
Holla back.